The Diary of Samuel Pepys, 7th of January 1661. This morning news was brought to me to my bedside that there had been a great stir in the city this night by the fanatics, who had been up and killed 6 or 7 men, but all are fled. My Lord Mayor and the whole city had been in arms, above 40,000. To the office, and after that to dinner, where my brother Tom came and dined with me. And after dinner, leaving 12 pence with the servants to buy a cake with at night, this day being kept as 12th day, Tom and I and my wife to the theatre, and there saw The Silent Woman, the first time that ever I did see it, and it is an excellent play. Among other things here, Kingston, the boy, had the good turn to appear in 3 shapes. First as a poor woman in ordinary clothes, to please Morose, then in fine clothes as a gallant, and then was clearly the prettiest woman in the whole house, and lastly as a man, and then likewise did appear the handsomest man in the house. From thence by link to my cousin Stradwick's, where my father and we, and Dr. Pepys, Scott, and his wife, and one Mr. Ward and his, and after a good supper we had an excellent cake. Go away, Ruffy. Peter, go and sit down. Peter, go and sit down, I'm trying to do something. Where the mark for the Queen was cut, and so there was 2 queens, my wife and Mrs. Ward. And the king being lost, they chose the doctor to be king, so we made him send for some wine, and then home. And in our way home we were in many places strictly examined, more than in the worst of times, there being great fears of these fanatics rising again. For the present I do not hear that any of them are taken. Home. It being a clear moonshine, and after 12 o'clock at night. Being come home, we found that my people had been very merry, and my wife tells me afterwards that she had heard that they had got young Davis and some other neighbours with them to be merry, but no harm. The 8th of January 1661. My wife and I lay long in bed today, talking and pleasing one another in discourse. Being up, Mr. Warren came, and he and I agreed for the deals that my lord is to have. Then Will and I to Westminster, where I dined with my lady. After dinner I took my Lord Hinchingbroke and Mr. Sidney to the theatre, and showed them The Widow, an indifferent good play, but wronged by the women being to seek their parts. That being done, my lord's coach waited for us, and so back to my lady's, where she made me drink of some Florence wine, and did give me 2 bottles for my wife. From thence walked to my cousin Stradwick's, and there chose a small banquet and some other things against our entertainment on Thursday next. Thence to Tom Pepys, and bought a dozen of trenchers, and so home. Some talk today of a head of fanatics that do appear about Barnet, but I do not believe it. However, my Lord Mayor, Sir Richard Brown, hath carried himself very honourably, and hath caused one of their meeting houses in London to be pulled down. The 9th of January 1661. Waked in the morning about 6 o'clock by people running up and down in Mr. Davis's house, talking that the fanatics were up in arms in the city, and so I rose and went forth, where in the street I found everybody in arms at the doors. So I returned, though with no good courage at all, but that I might not seem afeard, and got my sword and pistol, which, however, I had no powder to charge, and went to the door, where I found Sir Richard Ford, and with him I walked up and down as far as the Exchange, and there I left him. In our way, the streets full of train band, and great stories, what mischief these rogues have done, and I think near a dozen have been killed this morning on both sides. Seeing the city in this condition, the shops shut, and all things in trouble, I went home and sat, it being office day, till noon. So home and dined at home, my father with me, and after dinner he would needs have me go to my Uncle White's, where I have been so long absent that I am ashamed to go. I found him at home and his wife, and I can see they have taken my absence ill. But all things are past, and we good friends. And here I sat with my aunt till it was late, my uncle going forth about business. My aunt being very fearful to be alone, so home to my lute till late, and then to bed, there being strict guards all night in the city, though most of the enemies, they say, are killed or taken. This morning my wife and Paul went forth early, and I stayed within.